Okay, so onto the anime section, and we are going to start with Sword Art Online 2. Why don't we just start from like the last like arc,
Yeah,
including not including the Niflheim stuff.
yeah, because that was kind of like a short, like mini arc.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the entire last arc of Sword Art Online 2 was very interesting.
It
I'd have
was.
to I'd have to say it was very definitely different.
It was. It went full blown slice of life. Like really,
Yeah,
like it really reminded me a lot of
a slice of life anime.
basically like something like our on High School Host Club when it gets serious. Just
Uh-huh.
giving you a frame of reference of what
Well, I
it usually
mean,
looks like.
yeah. So, um, it was. Oh my god, it was. Where to begin? I mean, the whole fact. At first, it seemed like another. At the beginning, it seemed kind of odd because it felt like just another, like a weird arc where oh, now it's not going to be Kirito isn't the main focus. Saving the day, killing the bosses,
Hmm.
whatnot, which was different for me.
Yeah.
So, and the fact that Asuna's mother was just being a bitch most
Yeah.
of the time. Like, really? But, upper class people are just, parents are always bullshit.
Stereotypically, they're all snobs, but
Yeah. And then, just the really gritty, nitty gritty stuff was the truth behind it all.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah, Sword Art Online and 2 in general, it
was
just
much
really dealt
darker.
with like these real emotions.
It was very dark. Like
It was
Sword
very,
Art
very
Online
dark.
2, yeah, Sword Art Online 2 for the most part was far darker. Like Sword Art Online, the first one in the actual Sword Art Online part of Sword Art Online was dark because of the whole fact that if you die in the game, you die for real.
Right.
But then it became kind of lighthearted after that, a little more lighthearted after that. But with Sword Art Online 2, it was the whole fact that the whole death gun thing was just like, oh my god, it's like just it was just brought it to a very dark, like, because yes, people are dying again, but it's not the game as a whole, so it makes you question what the hell is going through these people's mind that they're
Right.
trying to kill these people. And then when you get into this arc, the Mother's Rosario arc, and it's the fact that these people she befriended are all terminally ill children.
Yep.
It's like, and the fact that the leader of them all is the worst off,
Yep.
spending 3 years in a virtual reality world because she doesn't want to return to her body, which is at the current moment was riddled and just destroyed by AIDS. And it
Yeah.
wasn't even her. And what I think the most tragic part of it all, it wasn't it wasn't her parents' fault. It was a doctor or nurse or whatever fucked up
Yep.
because they gave her mother during I think it was during the pregnancy, the birthing process or something was going, like she was having some medical issues and she needed blood while she was pregnant
Right.
with her, and the blood was tainted, and they all got AIDS.
Yeah.
So because of a medical malpractice, they all died of AIDS,
Hmm.
which is just fucked up.
Very.
So
Yeah. I mean, it dealt with a lot of like terminal illness, a lot of death, and like a lot
issues.
of relationship issues, obviously like Asuna with her mother and how she was starting to repair that relationship through just speaking her mind and like really showing like how she
Basically,
felt.
showing her why she's in love with these online games, and
Hmm.
you know, which in a way kind of makes is kind of sort of BS because she's like, oh, come into the game, look at this, the exterior of my virtual house, and remember some old memories of your childhood and then suddenly become not so bitchy.
Yeah.
Which it's a little hard to believe, but it's still got the point across.
Well, I mean, I guess if you think about it, she didn't start as an upper class snob. She started as a lower class, maybe not snob, but
Became an upper class person and then adapted the upper class person snobbery.
right.
And just like most upper class men are perceived as, they're snobby and they want their kids to follow in their footsteps. So they force so much pressure on them. Like, it's exactly like when Oran High School got serious.
It's so funny because they just feed into the stereotype of the overbearing Asian
Rich,
parents.
oh my god, yes. Whereas Kirito's parents are like non-existent.
Yeah,
Because if I remember correctly, weren't they raised by the grandfather?
I think so.
So it's like, and they don't, and just like it seems, which seems to happen a lot in anime, the kids, the main character of the show is a kid who lives by themselves or with another non-adult family member.
Yeah,
Like even when you think of like Bleach, friggin' what's her name, Orihime, she lives by herself.
yeah,
Like
that's because
and
they all died.
well yeah, but well no, not her parents. Her parents
Or her
were
parents were
assholes.
shit, but that's it. Yeah,
What I'm saying is like it that seems to happen a lot. Like when you
yeah,
have is that they live alone, and it's like how, that doesn't make any sense. And now, of course, I'm referring to like animes that semi take in the real world. Like Bleach is mostly a real world thing, minus the whole death news. But I'm not talking about like the things like Fairy Tail or Toriko or One Piece or Naruto. Well,
right.
He lived by himself, but this one it just doesn't make any sense. Like, where's the adults? The only adults that show up are assholes.
I know.
Like, this is like almost the opposite. This is like friggin' Peanuts on steroids. Like, the Peanuts, they didn't give a shit about the adults. So they weren't shown on screen and they just went, what. But these parents, these adults that show up were just complete assholes.
Right.
For the most part. Which seems to tend to happen a lot in kid focused or teenager focused shows.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if any of you guys watching have ever seen the show Kids Next Door. That's what literally like for the Kids Next Door. If you were 13 or older, you were evil. If you were under 13, you were a good guy. But once you became 13, you were evil. Like what the
yeah.
hell? So anyway, yeah, back to Sword Art Online 2. It was a little shaky, but it was with certain points. But for the most part, it was very good.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think so as well.
And I think that's all I have to say on that.
Yeah, I mean, I just have to say, like, I thought the ending was pretty good. I thought it was pretty cool. Like, you saw, like, Siyune was starting to recover thanks to, like, Yuki's sacrifice,
Oh
basically.
yeah, how like now that technology is going to help her sacrifice of her being a test subject allowed for other people to not be in the same situation as her.
Hmm. Not to mention the.
The fact that every single person who played Alfenheim Online was there to witness her dying while logged in.
Oh yeah, that was sick too. But let's not forget they dropped a hint. Well, okay, they didn't drop a hint. They outright told you at the very end who the frick was responsible for that technology, and it was the
Same
one and only Heathcliff.
same guy behind Sword Art Online.
That guy is amazing. That guy
Which
is amazing.
now I'm hoping that this year they do a Sword Art Online 3 because there is more content to cover.
Yeah.
But I'm afraid they're going to be bitches and be like, nope, we're good. We've covered we covered enough, so that way you'll want to read the light novels. But the light novels aren't translated.
Nah, they'll do it. They'll do Sword Art Online 3 if it makes enough money, and pretty
It
sure it
has,
is.
it has,
Yeah.
especially with this Mother's Rosario. So
Yeah.
all right, so that's just about that. Oh, definitely next is Fairy Tail. Because
Okay, you have the floor.
Fairy Tail, I'll sum it up in one. Honestly, this is going to be very quick. And I'm going to sum up everything that happened in one word. Shit. Because the last episode we reviewed was the first. We were still early on. Like I think it was after. Like I think oh yeah, it was the third episode of the filler arc. Back when we still had high hopes for it. All they've done since then is destroy our hopes for it. And God knows when we're going to get back to canon. I mean, it just. I think they said maybe another episode or two, but who knows? You enjoying your meal there? I mean, just to sum up some of the horrible shit they did, they had Wendy fight off against Aquarius in a battle of the Lolitas eating ice cream. Literally, like they solved their issues out by sitting there in the park eating ice cream. And then you had what was it? Kana against Scorpio in a friggin' Yu-Gi-Oh parody. And I think the taste of resistance that pisses off the Gray fans everywhere. You had Gray versus Cancer in a dance battle. In a friggin' dance battle. Where friggin' 90% of the time Gray was pulling off some Michael Jackson moves. Like this arc has turned to shit. And now, like as we're getting prepared for the climax, we're about to. Who the hell knows how they're going to end this? Because the next episode they're supposedly going up against the Celestial Spirit King. So God knows how they're going to ruin that our expectations of that. So I just no. All right, there's nothing more to say. It was crap. So next is I'm gonna do the Naruto Shippuden, and the last episode we reviewed um was called Obito Chiha, and a lot of it wasn't much that that happened. They advanced. I mean, it feels like not a lot happened because you still had that whole thing with Naruto and Obito talking, and you know, and then you had that 2 episode filler that was to correlate with the movie Naruto the Last to kind of talk about Hanabi more, so you can actually care about her when you go see the movie. And then it was followed up by greatness, and that is the rise of Madara Uchiha, the living Madara Uchiha. And as he just beat the living shit out of everyone and stole the beasts, the tailed beasts. And at the end of the last episode of 2014, which was released on Christmas, ended with the cliffhanger of both Sasuke and Naruto being on death's door. Now, oddly enough, they use this as a way to jumpstart the filler arc, which is about how all the other Konoha 12 became Chunin. And it's an interesting idea for an arc because that is something that people were curious about, but it's just the way they, uh, like deviated from the main story was that oh, friggin' uh, Fifth Hokage, oh my god, Tsunade was like, oh, I'm seeing Naruto dying. This somehow reminds me of how everyone's ambitions, how Naruto drove everyone to do better and become Chunins. So, anyway, I mean, so far it's been the 2 episodes of the filler arc have been decent. Um, Hopefully it'll stay that way because it has potential. Um, and then with the interesting thing being that you have Sakura working together with Choji and Ino since Shikamaru can't compete with him since he's already a Chunin. So I mean, so this as for the canon stuff that's happened since the last time, it was kind of until Madara came back to life, and then it was totally badass. And then this filler arc so far is okay, but I'll have to wait and see as more come out. And I think that's just about it on the Naruto Shippuden. Now for One Piece. The last episode we talked about was the beginning of the Zoro versus Pika, which is unfortunately still going on in the manga. However, the first episode that came out after we reviewed it was Lucy, Sabo disguised as Lucy using Dragon Claw, and the Tontada were preparing to try and put the the super spicy grape in Sugar's bowl, and you had the continuation of the finals. You had the them still they try and take down Sugar, and Trable kind of messes up the executive tower, and you had the reveal of Kuros's past with the king. You had you saw Gladius appear and fight, and you also had Usopp finally having his whole moment where he runs away out of fear of Trable, even though Robin's been turned into a toy, which he wouldn't even remember anyway because you know, and but then he comes back and do something to do it, and then you had the whole thing with finally Usopp being able to knock Sugar out by the sheer fact that he makes a surprisingly scary face when he ingests the super spicy grape, and then you had the episode. One Piece anime pacing is just in this arc. The pacing is normally bad, but in this arc, it just seemed to be getting worse. You had like episode, what was it, 2 weeks ago? Episode 677 was an entire episode focusing on all the people, all the toys turning back into humans. It just felt slow as shit. But 678, last episode to come out, was off the chain because you had the two main focuses. The first, or the second one, because I'm going to talk about the second one first, was the second half of the episode you focused on, the giant who picks up the barely conscious Usopp and presents him to all the former toy slaves, and because of a hole that was created in the ceiling, people start praising Usopp as God Usopp. It was hilarious, but it was drawn out like there was no tomorrow. The other major focus was the finale of the tournament, with Sabo destroying the Coliseum floor with his Dragon Claw Fist's Dragon Breath attack, and then eating the Mera no Mi, and using the Fire Fist to blow the hole in the ground to connect the Coliseum to the underground trade port. That scene was done so well. And of course, they saved next week's episode for the big reveal where you finally get to see his face complete, 100% complete. Not, pieces here and here with shadowing so you can't see the whole face. No, next week's supposedly main focus is the big reveal of what he looks like from head to toe, 100%. And as we should all know, that means shortly afterwards, things, as we all know, since now that the toys have been turned back into humans, and animals, because apparently they decided to turn animals into toys. It's going to be amazing, or it's going to be not necessarily amazing, but very chaotic and definitely going to be interesting. You know, now of course as manga readers we know, but for all you anime only viewers, it's I mean it's still going to be kind of slow, but it's going to be very chaotic. And I think that's just about it on the One Piece. I think that's it on the One Piece.
Oh boy, it's Akame Kiru time. And I last left off around episode, what, 18 was the last one I did. And after checking the tapes, it was about the assassination squad getting their asses whooped by Night Raid. And so the last 6 episodes were pretty bad for obvious reasons if you've seen the episodes and have read the manga, which is already like an average manga at best. And so what they did was they took that average story and made it worse by condensing it and um, killing off too many people at once and ending the story on an okay note, I guess. It was an okay note, but the last battle was horrible. But we'll get to that. I guess to start with, the first real death among Night Raid since episode 18 was Lubbock or Robic, and it was horrible. It was very very bad. Um, he died very quickly, where he had Shura, and I'm glad I'm glad that he killed Shura because I hated him in the manga and the anime. So yeah, uh, Shura gets killed, and so does Lubbock in the process. Unfortunately, um, I'm not going to say anything about the manga because I urge you to read it. Well, actually, no, I wouldn't. I would tell you if you like the story at all in the anime, then read. But if you really didn't care for it, then I wouldn't go for it. It's not really that good. Uh, People overhype the hell out of it. I enjoy it, but it's really not objectively that good. So then mine was the next one because Tatsumi got captured and because Budo beat the shit out of him. Um, no surprise there. And mine comes in to save everybody, and she dies, but she takes out Budo, and that was horrible. Like Budo is supposed to be so strong, and yet she dies, but takes him out. Like really, like Pumpkin was shown to not have an upper limit in the anime, which is very very bad. It's very lazy writing. If you have a weapon that has no limit, you have to give it some kind of limit, or else you you really leave no room for responsibility, and it's just lazy in general. But then I think Tatsumi was the next one. Oddly enough, um, yeah, Tatsumi died in the fight with the Emperor and that gigantic mech, the gigantic Tegu, which was insane by the way. Actually, pretty decent design. What I did like was that it was him and Wave were teaming up, and I actually do like Wave. But in the anime, they skipped his best scene from the manga, which was very, very disheartening, if you ask me. I thought his best scene. I'm not going to spoil it because it was completely skipped. Like that entire arc was skipped. So if you want to read it, I'm not gonna spoil it for you. But Tatsumi has a Deus Ex Machina at the end and is able to luckily stop the Tegu, but at the cost of his own life. Oh yeah, and Kurome got killed before that because Akame finally settled her battle with her, and it was actually a decent fight, honestly. The Danger Beasts got involved, but that was whatever, and they worked together. It was cool. And then you saw the emotion from Akame, which seems realistic for her character that she'd finally let go. Uh, Tatsumi and Wave were there, and it was that. For anime only content, it was pretty decent. Um, yeah, Tatsumi dying was okay. I mean, whatever. I figured they were gonna kill him because the animators have even worse bloodlust than the freaking author. The actual author has, just like George R. R. Martin and David and Dan, uh, David and Dan um, from Game of Thrones. But then Estes dies, and that was the kicker for me. I'm like, come on, because the power up that Akame received in order to kill Estes was absolutely lazy as fuck. Why? It's obvious. She gained a power just by taking her own blood. She gained so much power that she could fight with the best fighter in the world, which was Estes. At least in the anime. In the manga, what her and Budo are supposedly like on even terms, or maybe even Budo might be stronger. In this, it's obvious that in the anime it was obvious that Estes is stronger than Budo. But the strongest fighter in the world. All she had to do was cut herself with Murasame, and that was it. And she could fight on even terms, and she could somehow trick the you could trick freezing time. That doesn't make a lick of sense. An after image is the only reason an after image exists is because of the speed of the movement. It doesn't matter if time is frozen. There's not going to be an after image. It's gonna go away immediately. For God's sakes, that was horrible. It was like that whole fight was just so contrived and just so lazy and just so bad. And Estes dies. But then Akame doesn't die. She cut herself, but she didn't die. She received all this power, and what did she get? What was her only drawback? A fucking mark on her head. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's a big drawback. Oh yeah. That yeah. What the fuck? That was horrible. It's I don't know how anybody could condone something like that. It's lazy, as I said before. It's Deus Ex Machina, obviously. It doesn't make any sense. Why would why would Murasame not kill her on contact? Why would it not kill her, period? And why would it give her more power in exchange for nothing but a mark on her head? Maybe, oh, extreme fatigue afterwards that she can recover from in a day because she survived the anime and she cut herself. Meanwhile, Leone died. Are you fucking kidding me? Leone's death had absolutely zero reasoning behind it. She killed the minister, the guy who needed to be killed from the start, but he killed her as well. Yeah, really? So, what was the point of her death? She could have just killed him. It's not like she had to sacrifice herself to kill this guy. and then she dies in the end. Why? What was the point? There was none. There was no character development. There was no shock value in it. There was nothing. It was empty. And that is the worst kind of death, is an empty death, unfortunately. But so many of them have been. Chelsea's death meant nothing. Uh, Frickin' even Lubbock's death really didn't mean much, honestly. It was just a means of killing him off. That was it, really. I'm glad an agenda survived. She and Wave survived. Those two things were good. I do think an agenda should probably survive. I like Wave. I think he should survive the manga, and um, Leone should survive. I hope, but she didn't in the anime. So the anime overall, starting from episode 18 on or 19 on, was bad. Very very bad. It was the writing was awful. It was lazy. It was poorly paced. They took manga material and kind of and butchered them further than the original author already had butchered them. So it just seemed so bad and just such a bad idea. The animation was pretty decent. I mean, all the way through. I enjoyed the animation. The soundtrack was alright. The second opening was good though. I liked the second opening. The first opening was good too. Both of them were good. So I can say that about the anime. But yeah, I guess that'll do it for my review for at least around the second half of Akame ga Kiru's anime. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna briefly go over my thoughts on the first half of Fate's Stay Night. I assume it's the first half because the original was also 24 episodes, even though I haven't seen it. So this is all new material once again to me. So anyway, starting with the simple things, the animation was on point throughout. It was pretty awesome. I think it was Ufotable doing the animation again, like in Fate Zero, and or Ufotable, I think it is. But they did a really good job. I think um, they they definitely nailed their animation. I think they're really good. They did a great job of Fate Zero, and I think they did a wonderful job so far. And the soundtrack was decent, nothing overly memorable, but the first opening was pretty good. Uh, I definitely thought the first opening was pretty good. I'm hoping if they do a second opening, it's as good or better because honestly, Fate Zero had a good opening one as well, but then opening two was not very good at all in my opinion. But yeah, so yeah, I guess on to the characters and the story. Well, the characters are pretty good, though I find that Fate Zero is better so far with the characters. Like, I think that Kiritsugu Emiya and Kirei Kotomine were just over the top awesome compared to the characters here in Fate Stay Night. Obviously, Kirei is in this as well, but he's not the same Kirei, obviously, because he's not plotting to, know, overthrow, Tokiomi and everything, and he's not just going around killing people. Though he had a cool moment in this latest episode, that's for sure. Main characters Shiro and Rin, I do like them both, and I think that they work together on screen pretty well. I think their chemistry is pretty good in general. The dynamic between them, their personalities match, and you know what I mean. They blend well together, not necessarily match. And people around them also add to them, like uh, Fujimura, Fujine, I guess is how Shiro calls it. Like the sister. That's like the landlord type of girl that's the teacher. Yeah, you guys know who I'm talking about by now. The real eccentric one. And she's pretty good. She definitely adds a good dynamic to Shiro as well. Saber is, fine as well. She was fine in Fate Zero. She's good in this too. Um, Sakura is pretty much non existent right now. She was more so in the beginning. Um, and from we know from Fate Zero, once again spoilers for Fate Zero, but Sakura is Ren's sister, and so um, you could see trace elements of Rin knowing, but not being able to say it, I guess. Um, who else? Well, yeah, I guess on to Rin's side of things, you had Archer, who I like a lot, even though I think Gilgamesh is more likable in general. Though he's also in this too. He just hasn't made a move per se. Um, yeah, there's also the guy who is at the head of the I forget his name, but he was the guy that the Shiro made strip to make sure he wasn't um, a master of caster, and he's like the guy who was at the head of whatever club that Shiro's at, where they like fix things or something like that. He's pretty decent, and then the teacher that was actually that was the actual master of caster. Now he was badass when he started fighting. Like he was moving like a DBZ character almost. It was pretty sick. Like just to see a master that just like that fought like that was freaking awesome. It reminded me of the days of Kirei Kotomine and Kiritsugo, where they just fought like in this close quarters, but very aggressive style. Um, Caster, I mean, has been a pretty decent villain. I mean, she seems to be a front runner in my opinion, until Berserker comes in because we haven't really seen much of Ilya or Berserker, and so I think the author saved, obviously past tense because it's over, saved Berserker for the end, I'm sure. Knowing how Ilya is connected to Shiro by, um, you know, Ilya being Kiritsugu's actual kid, whereas Shiro is only a surrogate or a foster kid of his, so that connection is going to come in later. Let's see. That's about it for the characters, I guess. Like Ryder was non-existent. Oh, I guess Assassin was. I mean, he's pretty cool. I like Assassin so far. Um, he has pretty cool style. I'm always into the samurai type of fighting, but that's beside the point. So I guess onto the story. Um, I think the story is a lot more focused than Fate Zero, which honestly I've been enjoying more. I've enjoyed Fate Stay Night more than Zero so far because of the more focused plot, I guess. Because Fate Zero focused more around every like master, whereas this more so just focuses on Shiro and Rin with occasional focus on other masters, but um, we still have a main focus. In Zero, it wasn't that much of the case. Like, um, Kiritsugu and Kirei had a decent amount of focus, but then also you had Tokiomi who had a decent amount. You had even Rin had some focus in Zero. You had Ryder's master. I can't remember his name, but he had a lot of focus and he got his ass whooped. Caster had a decent amount before he got Shrek'd by Excalibur. Yeah, but in this, it's more so focused around, Archer and Saber and their masters. Though the one con to that is that we didn't see much of Ryder at all, and she got killed like pretty quick, which I'm kind of not a fan of. And it was done so abruptly and so quick. It was just like, okay, whatever. But otherwise, the familiars seem pretty decent so far. Though I think I liked the rider from Zero, and I liked Gilgamesh, and I liked, well, Assassin's better in this one, definitely. Um, Definitely. Obviously, Saber's the same, but that's besides the point. Anyway, so with the more focused plot, we spent a lot of time looking for Caster's Master, and I thought that was good, like a good plot line, because it turned out to be one of their teachers, and they even failed there, and it all led up to, Saber being taken from Shiro, and for now, and uh, for now, Caster is by far the front runner and is winning like very heavily right now. So something's got to be done. And as far as Rin's going, it seems like she's kind of teetering back and forth between whether or not to help Shiro or not. And it's pretty obvious why, because she's shown very heavy signs of liking him to a degree where she probably has some sort of affection for him. Um, that may not be the case later on, but as of the first half, it's very, very obvious, especially in that last episode. You could definitely see it happening when they were on the picnic and the train. It's like that whole thing was very, very obvious. I I do like it too. I think it's pretty decent, like romance build up, if you ask me. It's very difficult to write it in a battle shonen, and so if it's done the way it's been going, like for the past 12 episodes, I think it'll turn out pretty good. Uh, yeah, I don't like a lot of battle shonen romances because I think they're just written awfully because oftentimes the battle gets in the way and it just feels kind of forced. But in this case, it's had a good even hand where you see a bit of it here and there. Plus, the fighting is then after, and then you had a decent amount of character interaction and character development on screen with the two of them, where the dynamic and the chemistry improve at the same time, which is good writing. So I have to hand it to the author there. And yeah, as far as romance goes, as long as you can pull it off, I'm all for it. Uh, so far, the author's been pulling it off, and I'm sure he or she pulled it off. I don't know the author's name, so sorry, Fate fans. So that's basically it. Like the first half was pretty simple. It was mostly trying to indoctrinate Shiro into this this world of this Grail War and finding, the different masters and trying to eliminate some of them if they're foes, like Caster. Like Caster took out like probably about half of this, I guess half of the first half. So I guess a quarter of the series just trying to find the master and then trying to take out Caster took about a quarter of the series or half of the first half. And obviously, indoctrinating Shiro has been going on since the very beginning, and he's getting better. He's now definitely not afraid to fight on the battlefield, though he kind of showed trace elements in the beginning when he saved Saber from that one attack from Archer. or Berserker. I think it was Archer when he shot a very far away shot in like episode 2 or 3. But um, he was able to summon the the swords from Archer because that's the style he's kind of admired and feels like he's the most drawn to, which makes sense, but it's frustrating for him because he doesn't like archers. He really doesn't like Archer's personality and is very much the antithesis of Archer in terms of attitude and outlook on life, but his style is very much suited to like the way he summons those two scimitars or curved swords of some sort, and so he also was able to do that, which was pretty cool, by the way. And it hurt him, but I think he'll be able to master it soon. So I guess that's about it for this first half review. It was pretty simple, as I said before. I really, I really did enjoy it. I thought Fate Zero was pretty good. I was never like on the like supreme hype train that Zero got, where everyone was just going, "Oh, it's the best. It's so good." I thought it was definitely above average, but honestly, I've been enjoying this series more because, like I said, for aforementioned reasons, like the focused plot and just this chemistry that's been developing in general. Whereas it was much more choppy and in Zero because of the way it's written. I believe the visual novel is probably written in that certain way, where it's written like one story at a time, and they only like occasionally overlap. Whereas I think Fate Stay Night is more written to the point where you're more seeing the facets of um, each side, but they're always overlapping, and so it's like Zero might have a better like visual novel because you probably have more content in general, but I think Fate Stay Night is more suited to being an anime, if you ask me, just based on the information that I know from just watching both animes. But that's just my opinion. Uh, Tell me your thoughts if you're watching. Guess what else is back? Kuroko no Basket. And boy, am I happy for this return. Um, so, last we left off was the end of the Yosin game, where Kuroko uh, got that pretty sick block on Murasaki Bar. Oh, I did not, you know, uh, and it kind of ended off there. And so we picked up there, and the first half of the episode is pretty much recap with some added scenes, which I honestly didn't mind. I thought the recap was handled pretty well in general, because a lot of longer animes have to do these clips episodes, and I think they did a good job because they limited it to half the episode instead of the whole episode, which was good. And I thought like it was incorporated pretty well, like as an interview, and there was some good comedy in the interview as well. Especially like I probably laughed the hardest at Mitobe, where he just stayed silent and um, the cat dude just interpreted without 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 him saying a thing. That was great. I love that part. And then of course you saw the Generation of Miracles guys. They're just hanging around and making like remarks at the um, stuff that they're saying, like when they go back to the Toho game, when they go back to Shutoku, when they go back to Yosen. Like it was funny with my man Almina Daiki, who was uh, where Kagami's like, I'll win next time, acting like he lost, which in truth, honestly, without Kuroko, he would have gotten his ass whooped, um, for the most part. Except, well, I don't know. you guys probably know how I feel about Kagame's Zone and how it's so plot driven. It's ridiculous. Honestly, by all rights, he should have lost to Alamine, and honestly, he did lose to Alamine at the end a couple times where Alamine was the one scoring at the end, and then he blocks Kagami at the very end, and then it was up to Kuroko to give him a favorable pass in order to dunk it one last time. So whatever. Uh, but then Alamine says, I won't lose either next time. Um, did the basketball shoes thing come out yet? I can't remember if that was. Oh no, not yet. I don't think that's happened yet. I won't spoil that for you guys, but it's something minor, but whatever. Anyway, the second half is introducing Haizaki, where he has to choke a bitch in order to get himself on screen properly. So I mean, he like punches Himuro in the stomach, and to that I'm like, no, you can't punch the lead singer of Grand Rodeo. How is he gonna make more amazing openings? Which, by the way, this opening was pretty good. Um, Grand Rodeo strikes again. I love them, especially the third opening was so good. But all four of their previous openings were pretty stellar. Um, yeah. So Kagami comes out and he lets go, and then Kisei throws the ball, and then they reveal that Haizaki was one of the Gen himself, and well, he wasn't before they were called the Gen. He was part of the Teiko, and he got kicked out for a shit attitude, and Kisei was the one who replaced him, basically. But I was never a big fan of Haizaki, and so we'll see how he plays out against Kisei. Apparently, Kisei had never beaten him once. Obviously, I know what happens and stuff like that because I've read the manga, but uh, for anime only viewers, I'm gonna keep it spoiler free here. So I guess that's basically the episode. I thought it was a good episode for a Clips episode, as well as introducing Haizaki and the next game, which is Kaijo versus whatever team that is. I can never remember that team name. And yes, as I said before, the opening is very good. I really like Grand Rodeo, and I'm glad they're back again. Even the ending was pretty good, actually. I don't usually care for the endings, although I thought the last one, the one that was sung by Kuroko's voice actor, was pretty good as well. So yeah. Okay, so we're back with another episode of Kuroko no Basket due to the timing of how we restarted the podcast. And the fact that another episode of Kuroko no Basket and JoJo had come out. So here's another Kuroko no Basket. So in this episode, it was mostly focused on the game between Kaijo and Fukuda. Uh, and as we knew from the first episode, we knew it was going to be focused on Kisei and Haizaki, and ultimately it was. Uh, we kind of see what Heizaki's made of and how just his personality in general, how he likes to steal things. Where in a bit of a flashback, he liked to steal food just because somebody else had something and he wanted it. And so that was his shitty temperament from the beginning. And his basketball style is very similar to Kisei's, except instead of copying moves, he outright steals them by copying the rhythm of the person that he's stealing the moves from, but he alters it slightly so that when the person sees it done at a slightly different rhythm, it actually throws their game off. and they can't use it anymore, which on some level does make some sense, but honestly it really doesn't, because still it should be in your muscle memory. So to me, it never made a lot of sense to me uh, when I read this in the manga. But anyway, he's right now he's doing a lot better than Kisei is, and first half is over, and Fukuda's up because of Haizaki doing much better than Kisei at this point. And I mean, honestly, that's the chapter or the episode rather. That's the episode. It was very simple. It was mostly just focused on this battle where he was able to steal that weird ass 3 point shot and pretty much everything else. The rebound from that guy who's just like obsessed with getting rebounds. He's like the opposite of like Sakuragi Hanamichi from Slam Dunk, who was the rebound king, but he did not want. Initially, he wanted to just be the shooter and the dunker. But anyway, I mean that's really the episode. It was a pretty decent episode. Um, the animation was pretty much on point, uh, as always. And that opening, I'm having a good time with that opening. I've listened to it quite a few times since the episodes have come out. It's pretty good. Grand Rodeo strikes again. All right, so JoJo is back, and it starts off pretty good. So they're in the desert, and they get a new companion, and it turns out to be a dog who can use a stand, but at the same time, it's also got a lot of uh, temperamental issues, and it kind of makes sense because it doesn't seem to have a static owner, except for maybe Avdol, and so I guess that could explain it a little bit, because Avdol's really not around, so it probably doesn't have anybody to really train it or consistently take care of it. But that's, I guess, besides the point. It has a lot of attitude issues, and it needs gum, a certain gum, and it hates Polnareff, but most things hate Polnareff by this point. And so the first enemy of the second half, the Egypt arc, is this blind guy whose stand has to do with water, ironically, and it's able to travel through the sand and uh, locate people based on vibrations, which also makes sense because like sound travels better through water than it does through air because of the way the molecules are linked together. Whereas in a gas, it's less bonded. So of course, like through solids, it would be the most consistent sound, but or at least it would travel the best through a solid because it's so tightly knit. But again, that's besides the point. This guy's kind of impressive. He's been he's really put them in a bind, especially since he kind of has like a One Piece Logia type where you can't really hurt him that well because it's just water. Um, though it doesn't seem right that he can go through sand like that untouched, because sand is really good for absorbing moisture. So why the heck isn't it absorbing the stand itself? That doesn't to me that doesn't make any sense unless there's some kind of explanation next episode. But it killed a lot of people, of course, and pretty brutally. Like it seemed to have drowned one guy, and then it like looked like it exploded another guy, like something like that. It was pretty brutal. So I thought that was pretty cool. And So far, really hasn't been any kind of like backlash, but it seems pretty obvious that the dog is going to be the one that beats him because, well, he's the sand stand, which again makes sense for the sand to be able to absorb the water, even though it hasn't so far. Like the actual sand hasn't. I'm guessing only a stand can beat a stand. That whole thing, and I honestly think Hamon would also be able to do it too, but that you know a stand can beat a stand, so I think it has to be the stand of sand that beats the water, and then we'll see what happens to the user, whether or not it'll die from the stand dying or they'll find the user, which is highly unlikely because he's keeping his distance. So I mean that's pretty much it. There wasn't a ton of progression here, mostly due to the fact that it was mostly focused on getting the dog and then the plane crashing and then people dying and then the water stand attacking all those times. So I thought it was a decent to pretty good episode, like sort of a range because I'm not really sure what to rate it, honestly. So yeah, welcome back, JoJo. Oh, and the opening is it's okay. I wasn't really a fan of it, but it seems like something I could possibly get used to because like all the JoJo openings have some kind of oddity in it, including this one, and on some level you had to get used to some of them. Except I think maybe Bloody Stream or Bloody Storm, whatever. That one was a little less um, odd, I think. But yeah, welcome back, JoJo. Okay, now for another JoJo episode. So this episode was focused on defeating the stunned user, the blind guy, who was actually pretty cool, honestly. He reminded me of Joseph Joestar a little bit with the hair. At least part two Joseph, of course. And he kind of looked like him, if you ask me. But I guess that's besides the point. He was pretty cool. I liked his personality was pretty sick, and some of the things he did in order to try to prevent um, Jotaro from getting to him was pretty smart. That kind of sonar, that was pretty smart. I didn't think of that, but uh, Jotaro's plan and using the dog was very smart as well, and ultimately Jotaro won in the end. And I thought it was a pretty cool episode of strategy between the two parties. Iggy, I'm not a huge fan of really so far, but I can see some of the appeal. But I liked how Jotaro kept like threatening him, even though I'm a dog lover myself. This dog is annoying as shit for right now, and so the fact that Jotaro threatened him so many times, it was able to tame him until the end, of course, was pretty cool. And so you know, they're able to fly and kind of evade his sight for his quote unquote sight. Obviously, what I mean by sight is the earth-bending sight, I guess, that he had. Um, and yeah, I mean, there's not much more to say. They just outright win, which was one of the cool things was when Jotaro was standing right behind him, and he was trying to look for wherever Jotaro was. That was pretty sick. I had a It was a pretty good episode. I'm glad that it's over after two episodes, and we saw possibly that Iggy was gonna start liking Jotaro, but then he stuck the gum in his hat, which is kind of funny. But at the same time, I was like, okay, whatever. But to me, the biggest like what the fuck of this episode was the preview for the next episode, which was after the credits, but it was part of this episode. It was like, instead of being a preview, it was an actual like clip, it seemed like, because it was pretty lengthy. It wasn't an actual preview. Um, but it was this guy, this kid, and his older brother, and that book seems to be a stand because it seemed to have some kind of precognitive ability where it was able to predict the future because it showed a guy hanging from a telephone pole in such a manner, and when the guy who was reading it got on the bus, the older brother said that we should avoid that bus, but he seemed surprised at first. So what that tells me is that they can't decide the future, because honestly that would be broken, because it would be a book you would expect that maybe they could write in the book in order to decide the future. But I think what, like, my speculation for now is that things appear in the book and then the future is kind of shown in the book based on who's reading it. So, but it probably doesn't work on the stand user because that would probably be OP. So, I guess if I organize my thoughts here and put this into an explanation, it would be like this. The stand user is the kid, and the stand is the book. But basically, whoever looks into that book can see like the future, I guess, of some sort, maybe their death. But it probably does not work on the stand user because um, it probably just doesn't. Like, if the stand user reads the book, it probably does not show anything. And because they're blank pages, like, they're blank pages after a while, which means there's probably space for the next person who reads the book. And obviously they can't write it because the brother was surprised. So basically my thoughts on the ability is that whoever reads the book is shown their future whether they realize it or not. And it's not written, it just appears in the book. But we'll see what happens. I think that's a really, really interesting ability. And it's going to be interesting to see how they counteract this, because there could be some things that go along with this. Like, for instance, he may have like Jotaro or Joseph look at the book, and then they know what's going to happen to them, and so they can plan ahead and ambush them or whatever. Or there could be something else to it, like whoever reads the book is going to die, or by a certain way, but then that would be way too OP. Maybe it shows a possible death if they don't do something about it. Um, who knows? I'm just trying to throw out ideas here, but I think for sure we can say that it has some kind of future telling ability. That is for sure, in my opinion. But yeah, I guess that'll be about it. It was a good episode, especially that ending was very interesting. Yeah, and look forward to seeing more from JoJo.